Boards. Board games, board games, it's what I'll talk about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing. And today, I guess I'll talk about sometimes there are games, and you should shout. Talking about vocalization, talking about demonstration of what this game is all about. Yes, that went south, but hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez, and yes, this is the Bezzy Beats and Briefer Blether. Today, I am going to be talking about the playtest that I went to yesterday. It was good fun, for sure. And yeah, that's it. I want to talk a wee bit about length of games, realizing that Blether, a game where you Blether, Scottish word meaning to circle making very much sense, using as many word cards as possible as you spout a stream of consciousness, blah blah. Should be a bit shorter. I'll talk about my thoughts of the games that I personally playtested. I'll also talk a wee bit about the other games that other folk playtested. And so, yeah, without further ado, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, one of my recent highlights was definitely going to the playtest itself. That was just fantastic. Woke up at a fairly early time. I don't remember what I did in the morning. I think I was... I don't know. But anyway, I cycled over to Royal Festival Hall, met the lovely people, David Brain, Perrin, Ben, and of course the one always fantastic Ellie Dix, who comes up with some fantastic games, and yesterday was no exception. Ellie was showing us the 12 days of Christmas gift box. The idea being that on day 1 you'd open an envelope and you'd use all these components for a game. On day 2 you'd get some more components for a new game. Day 3, so forth. As you go through, you get more and more and more and more components, and some days you'll just get a bunch of rules and it'll be like, oh, use these cards and don't use those cards. And so you might need to spend a few minutes making sure that you've got the correct cards together. But then these are games that bring a little bit of joy, and you can play them in the 12 days following Christmas. So they are just kind of like an introduction to games, something there for people who want to play lots of games and get bored of playing the same game over and over. And Ellie's used her inventiveness and to make a whole bunch of things. So well done, Ellie. That was definitely excellent. I'm just going to share some photos. It was a beautiful day. I thought to myself as I went outside, sun in the sky, glass buildings reflecting the light. I went and got myself a burger. I was attracted to this place by the duck burgers. Started chatting to this person. I was curious, are they actually French? Because the stand does call themselves the Frenchy, and they were both speaking French. I was hoping potentially to practice my French. I asked them where they were from, and they asked where I was from, told them, and then they started speaking Farsi with me. It's not super unusual, but it wasn't expected. And so we had a nice conversation about games and Settlers of Catan, and I suggested, oh, have you tried Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride? They mentioned, and so after finding out that what they really like about Settlers of Catan is the trading, I suggested that I might bring them a couple of recommendations next time. This is the burger that I got, by the way. A lot of duck confit, 2 types of cheese, goat cheese, blue cheese, bun, caramelized onion, and yeah, duck fat chips. It's so good. Back to the playtesting. David Brain brought this game out. It's what we might call a crash and burn game. A game that you don't expect to make it through until the end of the game. In this instance, we did play until the end of the game, and I think it was necessary just to make sense of the scoring. But, you know, in a sense, it could have been, we could have dropped 1 or 2 of the rounds, possibly. And we could have gotten the same information. It was very, it's not a game that will ever be played again in those current rules, but there's definitely ideas in there for a couple of different games, as is often the case with even the worst thing, which this was very far from the worst thing, just to be clear, but even the very worst thing, there's usually a couple of seedlings of ideas, and for sure, this could easily evolve into 2 different games. And hello, Timmy. Lovely to see you. I hope that you're generally well. This is my game that we playtested yesterday. This game has a ridiculously long title. Would you like to know what the title of the game is? Would you like me to tell you the title of my game? Because the truth is, it will take me about 10 minutes to tell you the title of my game. It is on Board Game Geek. So it is a game wherein you blether, a Scottish word meaning to talk at length, at a fast rate, without necessarily making very much sense. Using as many word cards as possible as you spout a stream of consciousness, trying to finish before the time runs out. Keeping those cards you used and discarding those you did not, with 5 cards being apportioned between 2 bletherers each turn to denote their relative merit. More cards being collected and making the game increasingly difficult for everyone involved, as the blethers get more and more furious, and the game culminates in a final blether-off, wherein the 2 players with the most cards blether, and everyone else distributes their entire deck amongst the finalists. Mainly designed by Behrouz Bahman Shahriari, and originally inspired by a short list of long tabletop game names with an associated competition to find the longest game name. And yeah, this is the full title of the game. Yes, Salty Horse, this is still the game. So if you go to Board Game Geek, it says the full title is too long for the database title. The title is this is the title of the game. I'm not going to read all of that out. It does not right now. So I appreciate maybe I like to call it a game wherein you blether for short. And so, yeah, that is truncated name. Although that name there should probably needs to be tweaked. But yeah. And yes, hello, Salty Horse. So anyway, this was the game that we playtested yesterday. Honestly, this game has been basically done for quite a long time. And I know that there's a bunch of people who really want me to make it. The only issue is that this game needs a lot of cards. And it would be nice if... So on each of these cards, as you can see, there's 2 words on each side. And these are the keywords that you have to use before you get rid of the card. So you're trying to go through as many keywords as you can within a minute. The blue word and the picture is just to give you something to start off with. So at the start of each turn, you have a choice of 3 different topics. So here you'd be talking about your home, or parties, or bananas. And then you would blether for a minute, vaguely relating to the topic, but you can go off on a tangent. and then other people vote. You get more cards if your bladder is better, and yeah, that's basically the game. I mean, it's been well over a year since I played it. Yeah, I don't think I ever played it during 2020 or in 2021 until just now. And there are a couple of very tiny tweaks that I might make. I might say that originally you started off with 10 cards, and then each time you bladdered, you end up getting more and more and more cards. And so by the end, you've maybe got 30, 40 cards, I think. And so it went round twice just to allow everyone to bladder with everyone. And it meant that you could start from a small thing where you're easily going to be able to get through all your cards, and then you build up, and then you build up. I think that with this game, I need to increase the number of cards that people are giving away. So increase the merits of the value of that, rather than just the number of cards you get through, because it's definitely a game about making your bladder entertaining. But also, I'm going to cut it in half, because at the end, people were saying, "Oh yeah, I would have liked to play more," but we did cut it in half because we were running out of time, and it works perfectly fine. And you need the final bladder off. You need a final bladder off between the two people, but it doesn't need to be a 45-minute game. It could be just a 25-minute game. And yeah, so that's a few tweaks that I'm going to make, and one day this will be a reality when I have time to do all those 550, 600 illustrations for the little things. And frankly, I've gotten to the point where I'm not going to spend hours and hours on each of these illustrations, but I will spend a little bit more time than I spent on these little doodles. So I'm starting to think, yeah, actually, it's on the cusp of possibility. There could be something that I could make within the next couple of years. And yep, I just wanted to talk briefly also about game length in general. Just making sure that your game is of an appropriate length. Because the advantage of a shorter game is that you can just get stuck in right away to the best parts of the game and just be like, boom, here you are, here's the best bits, and now go and have a climax, and boom, you're done. If you want to play again, you can play again. The other thing for the game is Salty Horse says game name length is also important. Yes, it is. It, as the game name said, where does it say? There was an associated competition to find the longest game name, which I willfully misinterpreted as a challenge to create that game with the longest name. So basically, this game, when it gets published, it's going to, sure, it'll have some stuff that I'm legally obligated to put on the box, but it's just going to have on all 6 sides just the name of the game, just lots and lots of text. That will be it. It will be like, people will pick it up and be like, what is this? This looks ridiculous. It's just a big red box with black text on it and a couple of CE marks and maybe a barcode. I don't know. Maybe not even a barcode. But that is parts of the res on the edge. Do you know what I mean? It's parts of what I was doing was to say, this is the game with the longest name ever. Now, yeah, I think it's important to... The other side is that with a longer game, sure, even if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you can have a bit of a build-up, you can have a bit of a ramp-up. And that was originally the case in A Game Wherein You, as I'm going to call it for short, or A Game Wherein You Bladder. No apologies needed. like stuff is all comments and questions, and I appreciate hearing about everything, but I'm just not maybe going to get to it in the order that it's written. But I just want to acknowledge that with a longer game, you are able to have more of a ludological arc. You're able to say, okay, yes, I started off with just this tiny bladder, and then I got all these cards, and I got more cards, and then we had 4 rounds. And the difference between 4 rounds and 2 rounds, 4 rounds does give you the possibility to sort of build up and feel like you've got this ownership. And then in the 4th round, this is the high stakes round where you might lose it all, and that's the one that really matters. But on another sense, yeah, by halving the game, it kind of means that, yeah, it can more easily fit into things. And yeah, anyway, that's basically, I don't have much to say about that. I just wanted to raise it up. Timmy says, I worked on my game 8 hours tonight and now my head hurts. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope that you got a bunch of good productive work done. And yeah, if you did, then great. But hopefully your head does not hurt for nothing. Let me show my final picture, which is this lovely, adorable game. I can't remember the name, but it was made by Ben O, whose surname I do not even know, but it starts with an O. So there's a bunch of big, chunky pawns. Some of them have money, some of them have dynamite, some of them have little diamonds, as you can see. And you're taking these from the middle of the board, you're swapping with the middle of the board, you're swapping them with other people, and sometimes you get to look at your own things. You get to do 1 of 3 actions. It's super simple. Swap with the middle, swap with another player, or look at your pieces. Once you look at your piece, this kind of felt like Masquerade. It felt like a lot of memory and social deduction games, but taken to the simplest way. The way the round ends was meant to be when someone shouts kaboom. I was concerned about this, because even though in a lot of groups, for sure, someone might shout kaboom, but when you shout kaboom, you can shout kaboom when you've got 1 dynamite, and if someone else also has the other dynamite, then they lose and you do not lose. So it's kind of like, haha. But then again, you don't even want the dynamite. So really, I felt like, yeah, I said to them, look, can we put a timer even for like 20 minutes or 10 minutes to that if we are still playing at that time, we stop. I didn't want to say you need to change the game. I just wanted to say, well, this is a game that should probably be taking 2 or 3 minutes. If it goes beyond a certain amount of time, then the playtest has served its purpose, then there's something wrong. And so Ben started a timer for 2.5 minutes, and that seemed to really give the game a bit of agency. It's possible that now I'm talking about it, the whole kaboom thing might not really work properly, because dynamite, if you're sure you're killing someone, but then that's 1 piece that could ideally be money, because as you might imagine, each money is worth 1 point. Diamonds are worth 5 points, and there's also 1 piece that doubles your other thing, and 1 piece that whatever your other piece, you instantly lose. Yeah, this was it. It was a really nice simplification of the whole memory, social dynamics stuff. And while I'm talking about it right now, I'm like, you know what? There might be a couple of small tweaks to be made, but this is a really, really solid game, and it's almost ready to start pitching to companies, just thanks to some tiny tweaks that were made. 1 tweak was made that when you take things, originally, you took something from the center and you looked at it, or you take something from someone else and you don't look at it, or you look at your own things and potentially mix them up. Now, this felt unintuitive, taking from the center and you look at it. Why? And I agree, like, it is a fun thing. You take things and then you're like, oh, I want to see. But then, if you take from the center and then you look, you kind of take from someone else and you want to look. I got it wrong. And then Ben, the designer, messed up on their first turn, which suggested that there was some confusion. But then I think it was Ellie and David who suggested, well, how about you can't look? You just cannot look unless you spend an entire action to look. So you take from the center, but you do not look, or you take from someone else, do not look, or you look. And giving, that's the thing, like exception, saying you look in this instance, you don't look in that instance. That's confusion. Separate it out into a separate action. And sure, that means that less information is going around the table, but it also means that sometimes people are going to have to spend a turn to look. And so if you are looking, then you're going to be able to almost keep track of the things, like, okay, that's one that I want to keep track of. That's a blank. I'll keep track of where that was. Oh, that's a gem. I definitely, if someone takes it from me, I want to track where that is. And then, yeah, making things more uniform makes them simpler to learn. And so that was such a good design decision. It sounds tiny, but it's such a big improvement. Yeah, that was all of my recent highlights. Now, if anyone has any questionably quick questions, feel free to ask. Questionably quick questions is the next section. It's not an interrogation, but it's the questionably quick question section. Questionably quick questions. Feel free to ask me about food or dance or yoga or whatever. Oh, speaking of yoga, I forgot to mention my other recent highlights, which was for me. I did go to a yoga class last night at 5:30, and I did have to stop a couple of times. I had to take some variations. I had to do child's pose once or twice because it was getting too much for me. But I feel like I've been doing this regularly. I feel like I've seen some improvements, if nothing else, mentally and emotionally. I'm feeling more confident in myself, so that's really good. Is it cold there, asks Timmy. It is somewhat cold. I mean, not as cold as it is in Nova Scotia, I'm sure, but I feel warm in my room. I'm wearing a nice thick dress, but when I'm outside, yes, I wear thick leggings. I wear a couple of layers and a coat on top, so actually 3 layers on my top and 2 layers on my bottom, like the thickest leggings I've got, and also a skirt, although the skirt's kind of more for modesty rather than the temperature, although it always helps, even if it's a thin skirt. Like if it comes down to the knees, which this one does, then it kind of traps the air pockets and it adds a bit of warmth. But yeah, it is pretty chilly. Apparently in Nova Scotia, it's -3 degrees centigrade. And I don't know what, I guess you could, London temperature for anyone whose temperature right now here is 11. So it's a bit chilly. It's chillier than I would like, but it's nowhere near Nova Scotia levels. So feel free to ask any other questions you would like. Until which, I'm going to talk about a brilliant thing. Brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Brilliant things. So what is a thing which is brilliant? I am going to say that clothes generally, whether it's a scarf or, dress or leggings or socks or pants or, and when I say pants, I was meaning, UK pants, like underwear, or vests. Again, I mean what the Americans might call undershirts. Yeah, all sorts of clothes, jumpers, and anyway, clothes, they keep you warm. They can keep you dry if they're waterproof. Yeah, some waterproof clothes are amazing. I've got some waterproof trousers. I've also got a waterproof jacket. It's fantastic. But Yeah, shoes. Shoes are part of your clothes. They can give you little bits of armor. Like if I fall down, sure, I might graze my elbow or something if I wasn't wearing anything. But if it had long sleeves, then maybe I just kind of scuff the top. And sometimes it's better to scuff the top. Like if you're wearing denim or even soft leggings, then you fall down and it gives you a little bit of cushioning. Just a little bit. It's quite nice. And of course, there's the thing of modesty and, underwear, keeping your outer clothes, relatively clean because you change them more often. Just clothes in general. I think that clothes are fantastic. I like wearing clothes. So, I mean, if you want to be not wearing clothes, that's also your prerogative. But in climates like this, I like long sleeves. I like many layers. I like to layer it up. Yep. Well, in the absence of any more questions, I'm going to turn it over to you. So, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. Is there anything you want to share? Something you're looking forward to? Something fun and frivolous or super serious? Something you want to do or something you need to do? Personally, I am going to be moving. I have a van booked in 8 days' time. I'm going to be taking all the stuff from here to another address. I have 4 friends who are going to be helping me, which is really kind of them. I will maybe make some food, maybe get a takeaway, have some sort of party as thanks and say, yeah, thank you very much. This is awesome of you. That is really what I'm focusing on this weekend. I do have a friend whose birthday it is. I'll make sure to go there for at least a couple of hours. When I say at least at least an hour. Pop over, say hello, maybe a couple of hours, but not too much, because I do have to get a lot of packing done. And that is the truth. I see some questions. How far are you moving? Is it the same area? It is maybe about 5 miles away, 6, 7 miles away. So, yep, I'm going a little bit south, so I will still be in central North London rather than now where I'm kind of in North London. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, having my own place, being able to put stuff. Oh, there's a whole bunch of questions. But sure. Timmy says getting a free toaster over tomorrow. That sounds fantastic. Congratulations on your free toaster. Do I always have games ready when visiting friends? When I visit friends, I don't. I guess, yeah, I do have a small box about this size that has a bunch of my games in it, including the L deck. And with the L deck, you can play a whole bunch of different things. And yeah, like normally, if I'm visiting friends, I would say, hey, would you like me to bring something? And I'll leave it up to them. If they don't want me to bring anything, then I generally won't. Like, yeah, I don't always feel like I have to bring something. I don't have something that's literally always in my possession. The closest that I could say would be the L deck, just because it is so versatile, and obviously as the designer and developer, I know a whole bunch of the games that you can play with it. And so you might go somewhere and we're like, okay, we can play Giftable, and that's a good creativity game. Or, hey, let's all play Wibble, or let's all play something else. I'm trying to think what I would actually want to play in these times of COVID. But yeah, today when I'm heading over to see the friend, they said, oh, by the way, if you fancy bringing a game, do feel free. And I mentioned the game with the really long name. And so, yeah, we might play that as well today. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, and I'm actually just thinking of, the whole length. Whereas with the old style, it does feel like, wow, this is a really big, meaty experience. We've settled into this as the main course of the night. With the shorter game cutting off one round, yeah, it feels like, yeah, I could imagine us playing that for 25, 30 minutes, and then at the end, someone saying, oh, that was fun. We should play that again. But anyway, I do like games. I do like sharing games, and it's a nice thing to do with people, but at the same time, I do also enjoy a good bit of conversation. And so, yeah, quite often that I've taken to almost letting people know ahead of time. Next Tuesday, I've got a little date before I leave the area. Someone said, oh, this cafe, you need to definitely check it out. And so I said, okay. Well, and so we've made a date, Tuesday afternoon, we're going to the cafe. I might take Go. Yeah, because I've started teaching them Go. Anyway, but even if we just conversed and had a nice conversation, that itself is something that I've become maybe more confident at. And I think that games have given me that confidence. I am almost certainly on the autistic spectrum. I find conversation sometimes quite challenging, especially if it's just when you're getting to know someone, or when someone's just arrived and you're not sure what they want to talk about, or if it's like, oh, do they want to continue talking about this for a long time, or should we change the topic? And yeah, there's a lot of conversational rules that are generally accepted in society that you never really get spelt out for you. Whereas with games, one really nice thing is that these rules are clear and they are all spelled out. So that's his one thing. Salty Horses says, I imagine from these streams that you're an expert in conversing. Hey, this isn't a conversation. This is like a monologue with occasional questions and stuff. I mean, sure, we could have a very... If you write a lot more, then I would be reading out a lot more stuff from you. But at the same time, it is very me-focused. It's very me-centric. If I was monopolizing the conversation like this when there was someone visiting me, that would not be cool. Come on. I hope you know what I mean. But yeah, let me double check to quickly see if there was anything else that I wanted to talk about today. Oh yeah, vocalization in games. So I wanted to talk about game focus. So firstly, games need to be focused. Think about why you want this game. Like, why is there dynamite in this game? Do you need the dynamite? Is that actually part of the exciting part of the game? That someone can call something and then you get blown up? Or is it more exciting that someone else can... I guess that is an exciting part of the game, but then how do you make it work? Like with this, like, is it important to ease the people in, to have that sort of early tutorial, or do you just wham them over the head and say you are talking as quickly as you can? And also, here's a bunch of extra points for it. Like with David's game, it's like David was, what are you trying to deduce? What should this game be about? What's the interesting part? And make sure that your game is focused around that. I'm not saying that your game can't be about multiple things, but your game has to have a priority, and everything should be serving that priority. So ultimately, when it's like, okay, do we go down path A or path B? You know which path you're going to take with your design, because it's like, yes, this is going to be a mid-weight deduction game, and you're trying to work out these things. You need that focus. That's what I want to say. The last thing I want to say is vocalization. It's really important. I mean, I guess this comes into communication, but sometimes codifying that is super important. With Yogi, I heard on Fun Problems, a brilliant podcast, by the way, and not just because they keep referencing me and my game in it, but yeah, With Yogi, they said, oh, this is such a simple game. You draw a card and then you do what it says. But that's not quite all the rules. There's an important step in there. You draw the card, then you read it aloud, and then you do what it says. Reading it aloud is super important in updating everyone else, all the other players. You kind of say, hey, this is the new thing that I have to do. And even if someone can't read the card from across the table, maybe they've got their own heads kind of next to their knee, they hear what's going on. And so vocalization, things like Uno, where if you don't say Uno, you draw extra cards. This kind of forced vote, that's like a penalty for not, but it kind of reminds everyone and it helps make the game more accessible in a way. Sure, there's a memory aspect, but it also brings a little thrill. And oh, they've got only one card left. There's the excitement there. And in Kitty Cataclysm, what I found was that if I don't say read it aloud, then people play their card, they draw the card because I played a card that says draw 3, I draw 3. Now it's the next player's turn. Now I'm an experienced gamer. When I'm done with my turn, I will say to the player, okay, I'm done, or it's your turn, or something like that, to let them know to carry on with it. But people who are more casual gamers, that's also, it's a bit of headspace. So really what I end up saying is read out the card. That is an important step. It tells everyone what's going on. It reminds the person after you that they are about to have to play. And so forced vocalization, especially on the simpler side, I think is super important. Yeah, that is now really the end of my stream. Thank you, Salty Horse. I appreciate the compliment. And now I am going to recap and wrap up before I finish up. Recap and wrap up. Well, I guess I talked about a whole bunch of playtests. I talked about Ellie Dix making amazing, lovely little games, 12 Days of Christmas, Royal Festival Hall in London. If you're based in London, then feel free to join us. Don't just turn up, please do RSVP, but we meet at 10 a.m. on Friday, and then we start playing at 11, 1, and 3. Like, if no one's meant to turn up, we might say, okay, well, we'll start playing 10, even though it's only 10 minutes to 3. But the idea is that we play games for 90 minutes, and then we have half an hour of overrun time / chatting time / break time to go to the loo or get yourself some food. I talked about meeting a new friend and talk about Iran and board games, a delicious burger, David Brain's game, my game, where I'm going to actually try increasing the number of cards, because originally the reason that I had 5 was to force people to make a decision. They can't just give 2 to this person and 2 to that person. But if it was like 7, then that's quite a bit. And so you can get 3 and 4, at which point there's not much in it. But if someone's a lot better, I do see that sometimes people are... I mean, maybe I should even go to 11, is what I'm thinking. Just go all the way, go to 11, and yeah, or maybe with different player counts, you have different numbers. Just because then if you have different numbers of cards being given by different player counts, then overall you'll still be giving the same number of cards, roughly. Anyway, that is definitely a game that I'm going to come back to and ponder a wee bit more, even though it might not be started for a year or more. This game was fantastic. Just a nice distillation, and that is all I talked about. I talked about, temperatures in Nova Scotia, headaches. I hope that you're generally well, Timmy. Lots of love. And speaking of other people, I want to say thank you, everyone. If you want to check me out, of course, I'm Stuff by Bez everywhere. stuffbybez.com/streams. I am streaming on my own on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, 10 a.m. UK time. Wednesday, I'm having a bit of a roundtable with Matthew Dunstan and Rory and possibly Dick Rinsema, and we'll chat about pricing of digital stuff because it's an interesting thing. Digital stuff, there's no incremental cost, but there is definitely lots of work to be done. So we'll have a chat about that. Share, spread the word. I want to say thank you, everyone. You are all fantastic. Keep it real, stay lovely, have a good day. Enjoy whatever you are up to. There is probably only one thing left for me to say. Have a warm weekend. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. And what are you up to, Salty Horse? I hope you are having a wonderful weekend. For now, I will say bye-bye. 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 This is a goodbye song. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. This is the end of the show. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And now it's time to go. Goodbye. Bye. Bye-bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. This is the end of the show. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.